Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the next podcast. I'm Wanda Curley, your authority on project, program, and portfolio management. This podcast is brought to you by PM Powered, a consulting company for project, program, and portfolio management. It's great to have you here. And today, most of my topics are going to be on AI. And one thing I looked at today, I normally read the USA Today every day. And on their money front page, I was surprised to see, can AI prevent the next school shooting? And they have several companies that do AI that have amassed data on school shootings. They go out to social media that the school provides on their students. They go out to email. They go out to text messages. So anything that is brought to you by AI, that AI can harness, they look at. And one of the things that each of these companies claims is, let me find it here. Where is it? Oh, here it is. It says since July 1st, the company claims to have stopped 447 deaths by suicide at the 1,400 school districts that use its services. And that last year, it prevented 542 potential deaths by suicide. Google also says it stopped 240 instances last year where a child brought a weapon to school to harm another student or intended to under such circumstances. Gaggle will immediately alert an emergency contact at the school and if needed, law enforcement. So it's good to see that AI is going for good things too that we sometimes don't even think about. These companies actually provide their services for free, and they also provide it to parents to monitor their children. But the service to parents is charged. It's either $9 a month or $99 a year. So those are some of the things that AI does for good in schools, and I was glad to see that. So let's look at another thing that AI, this comes from Singularity Hub, and it talks about from parkour to surgery, here are the top 10 recent advances in robotics. And I'm not going to talk about all 10, but I will tell you I had no idea what parkour is. So hopefully you do. But if you don't, parkour is where you run through a congested area. So you might be running through the mall, or you might be running through a park, and you have obstacles and you got to jump over them, or you have to go around them quickly. So now they have a robot that actually does parkour. It's the Boston Dynamics Atlas doing parkour. So they actually have a little video in here, and they show it jumping over logs and going around things that are in its way. And so that's something that robots have had a hard time doing before. And it shows that the Atlas creators have admitted that the videos we see are cherry-picked from multiple attempts, many of which don't go so well. But they say they're meant to be inspirational and aspirational rather than an accurate picture of where robotics is today. And combined with the company's dog-like Spot robot, they are certainly pushing the boundaries. Another one is the Intuitive Surgical's Da Vinci SP platform. Now, robotics have been in surgery for many, many years, and the Da Vinci is one of the best ones out there. But one of the things that they have just had approved by the FDA was a single port system which is able to insert 3 instruments into the body through a single 2.5 centimeter, that's not inches, that's centimeters, cannula or a tube. A cannula is a tube. So can you imagine putting 3 instruments into a body with just a 2.5 centimeter cannula? That to me is amazing. They've already shipped this out for growth. Then they talk about a soft robot that navigates through growth. And they said to think about how mushrooms grow, fungi, or how the way plants have their tendrils that go out and grow. So this is what happens with this robot. It actually grows, and it's soft, and it almost looks like a worm going through different holes and stuff. So to me, that's very impressive. The tube-like robot unfolds from the front as pneumatic pressure is applied, but unlike a plant, it can grow at the speed of an animal walking and can navigate using visual feedback from a camera. To me, that's just amazing, but I don't know how big it can grow, or I mean, how long it can grow, but I'm sure uh, they do it in a sense that it needs to, where it needs to go, so they have the elasticity to allow it to grow. 3D printed liquid crystals, elastomers for soft robotics. So soft robotics is one of the fastest growing subdisciplines in the field, but powering these devices without rigid motors or pumps is an ongoing challenge. So there's been some Harvard engineers have now demonstrated these materials can be 3D printed using a special ink that allows the designers to easily program in all kinds of unusual shapes, shape-shifting abilities. And the reason I'm talking to you about these different things, there are project managers on these items, whether they're official project managers or they're unofficial project managers. I'd like to hear from you guys on these different robotic things and what they're doing. I think it would be a great podcast to have. So contact me at wanda@pmpower.com. Let's see. They have self-healing, muscle mimetic self-healing and hydraulic amplified actuators. So they have another soft robot that actually contracts and then with the force and speed of a mammalian skeletal muscle, the voltage is applied so that the robot actually can lift it double its weight. So we're finding that we have now robots that can lift weights that are even bigger than them and way more than them. Another one is a self-assembled nanoscale robot from DNA. They actually have created a robot. It creates itself through DNA, and then it looks like a long tube or arm. And it almost, and in the center, it attaches itself. And what they've been able to do with electrical pulses, because DNA is electrical, they've been able to make it go around like a clock, like the hands on a clock. So in the future, I can see this will be helping to repair DNA or some other things. Maybe it'll help to repair muscle tears, or maybe it'll help to cure cystic fibrosis or things of that sort. So I think that's very inspirational to see that. Another one that's been created is a Nimble bio-inspired robotic flapper. So it's a flying robot, and it looks more like a fruit fly, and it's about the size of a fruit fly. And it's been able to do some things to harness things that we wouldn't see before. And then the last one I want to go over, which is number 8, it's a soft exosuit wearable robot. And they said this exoskeleton could prevent workplace injuries, help people walk again, and even boost soldiers' performance. It's not bulky. It's actually designed out of textiles, sensors, and lightweight actuators. It's made an important breakthrough by combining their novel exoskeleton with machine learning. So let's go on to the next thing. It's called Making New Drugs with a Dose of Artificial Intelligence. So there, it says you can think of it as a World Cup of biochemical research. Every 2 years, hundreds of scientists enter a global competition. They're tackling a biological puzzle they call the protein folding problem. They tried to predict the three-dimensional shape of proteins in the human body, and no one has been able to solve this. Well, believe it or not, the thing that came in closest to it was an AI technology, and it's called DeepMind, and it beat everybody in this. So they're saying that DeepMind won't replace chemists, but chemists that harness AI will go much farther within their companies because they are able to do more. They understand how AI will help them create new products and new drugs for their organizations. So just as if they can help understand the protein folding problems, you can then predict physical structures of a protein and its shape in 3 dimensions. If scientists can predict this, they can better determine how molecules will bind to it and attach it physically. So if they're using AI to help them along this, they could create things that they won't even think of today. So that to me is just absolutely amazing. The article goes on a lot depending on what you want to do. But I think this is absolutely amazing to me. And if you want to find this article, it was in the New York Times, and it's called Making New Drugs with a Dose of Artificial Intelligence. So you can see artificial intelligence is all over the place. And again, if you're a project manager on any of these, and I know pharma uses project managers intensely, please contact me. I'd like to talk to you about it. So what games are humans still better at than AI? Well, it's amazing. Actually, there aren't any. However, I want to caveat that when they limited the AI to see only what humans could see within the game structure. So in other words, we can't see the whole data set. We can't see the whole map. We can only see a little bit at a time. When they only allowed AI to see what the human can see, humans beat AI in complex games. So that was interesting to note. So AI is where it does better is where it can see the whole vast area, not just the little area. So that was interesting to note that we can still beat AI if they put it at the same level that we see. Okay, next thing brought to you by Singularity Hub is the great myth of the AI skills gap. Everybody thinks that we're going to lose all these jobs between AI because of AI, but that's not entirely true. So they have a graph here, and they said they then point out that technology primarily creates high-paying jobs, like geneticists, as shown in the diagram below. So there's a created job, and they show a graph, and they show how it becomes higher on the last, and there's no people on the last bar, and there's no people on it. Meanwhile, technology destroys low-wage, low-skilled jobs like those in fast food restaurants, as shown below. So they show on the bottom graph, bar graph, that those are going away. Then those who are worried about these dynamics often pose the question, do you really think a fast food worker is going to become a geneticist? Well, they're saying no. But what happens is that somebody who's a college professor might become the geneticist, and then the high school teacher then becomes the university professor, and so on. Everybody steps up to a higher paying job. So, but what happens to those low paying jobs? The question is not whether those in the lowest skill jobs can do high skilled work. Instead, the question is, can everyone do a job just a little harder than the job they have today? If so, and I believe very deeply that this is the case, then every time technology creates a new job at the top, everyone gets a promotion. So think about that. If everybody can just do it a little bit harder, then we'll all have a little bit better jobs and better paying jobs. So this isn't just an academic theory. It's 200 years of economic history in the West. For 200 years, with the exceptions of the Great Depression, unemployment in the U.S. has been between 2% and 13%. Always Europe's range is a bit wider, but not much. If I took 200 years of unemployment rates and graphed them and asked you to find where assembly line took over manufacturing, or where steam power rapidly replaced animal power, or the lightning fast adoption of electricity by industry, you wouldn't be able to find those spots. They aren't even blips in the unemployment record. You don't even have to look back as far as the assembly line to see what's happening. It has happened nonstop for 200 years. Every 50 years, we lose about half of all jobs. And this has been pretty steady since the 1800s. So does that mean all jobs are going away? No, it means they're being replaced. How is it that after 200 years, we have lost half of all the jobs every half century, but never has this process caused massive unemployment? Not only has it not caused unemployment, but during those times, we have had full employment against the backdrop of rising wages. So there's a history behind this. There's research that shows that this is happening. So to me, this is good information to show that AI is not going to yes, it's going to do away with some jobs, but it's not going to do away with jobs for everyone. So there won't be massive unemployment that people are thinking about. So let's go to the next one, and this one is a conference notebook, so it came from GE. It calls AI Bots, How GE is Adapting Traditional Management to AI. To get a handle on its AI strategy, GE is making AI more human. It's creating AI bots and assigning them to managers. Challenges abound. So they're not saying it's great. But they're saying they're absolutely doing AI. So they're deploying AI capabilities via bots. In essence, allows the company to apply traditional practice uses for managing the human workforce to technology. So these include practices like onboarding, training, rating, and creating a culture around AI bots. So these AI bots even report to managers, and they're giving them names. Some of the names that they've given is Greg, Olive, and Max. And there's over 50 different bots right now in GE that's going on. Instead of hiring someone new, the questions we're asking now is, can we train a bot to do more? So Thakral is the person that's kind of pushing this rework of Deep Learning Summit, where he brought it up and spoke at the Rework Deep Learning Summit in San Francisco. He goes and talks to managers and employees and promises them that he won't take their jobs if they create a bot. He'll give the bot to them so that they can do more value added instead of the unpractical stuff. GE's AI bots are in some respects an extension of robotic process automation, techniques businesses have been using to automate many common business tasks. So can you imagine if you had a bot to do all of your financials on a weekly basis? That would be great. It could go out and harness the data, all the data out there, and create, let's say, if you're a project manager, your EVM and all of those things that you needed to do. So it's amazing what we need to do in project management that could be done by a bot. So the company's facility in Budapest, Hungary is the one that's actually doing this, and they have about 30 people there. We gave 15,000 hours of man hours back to the business so the employees can do more productive things with suppliers and customers. So one thing I want to jump down to is they talk about where they want to do bots next because they find that they're doing them, that would be the area that they find it most creative because that's where people want it. And so for the AI bot project, Thakral decided to focus on problems identified by business leaders, supply chain managers, and plant managers in order to get buy-in and support. These include things like identified specific supply chain bottlenecks. Can you imagine if you had AI helping you understand where your bottlenecks were and how to make it better? Inventory management, cash management, such as determining if a customer is paying on time. Doing these kind of things we don't like to do sometimes. So one thing where they had a problem with bots and they weren't as productive as humans is GE ran into a situation where Thakral Learn built digital workers that were expected to do 500 transactions but only did 50. The reduced output was due to information being withheld or incorrect information being given to the bots. So they have to teach the bots how to understand politics in the office environment. So yes, humans can actually make the bots not do as well as they want. But can you imagine if they had been creatively using their minds to do more things and allow the bots to do the 500 transactions? They could have seen where there were issues going on. They could have done value add. So to me, that's just how people are sometimes. They don't understand it. They're scared of it. So they try to subvert it. I'm sure GE wasn't happy about that and had a thing or two to say to those employees. So let's go to the next one. Should your company hire a chief AI officer? Aaron Marks, newly appointed chief AI officer, along with senior IT leaders from Kohl's, eBay, and Square, make the case for an AI expert in the C-suite. So Aaron Mark actually does have an AI officer, and they wanted to understand why this was important. So let's talk about what Aramark did. Aramark is a non-technical business compared to internet startups. Its 270,000 strong workforce delivers food to hotels, hospitals, and prison. Aurora, who said he believes he is the first chief AI officer of a Fortune 500 company, said his position was created by board members when it became clear that the company was sitting on an untapped gold mine of data. So one of the first things he did was look at where they were having waste of food. And they did this with hamburgers first. And they were able to predict how many hamburgers they needed to defrost during the day for each day. And this downsized the amount of hamburgers that they threw out because they weren't needed. So can you imagine in a food company not being able to not throw out food? That is absolutely amazing. So where are some other things? So in a panel discussion, Alan Lee, Vice President of Data Science and Data Science Engineering at Kohl's, said the department store chain has not yet created a chief artificial officer role. Lee's team is focused on improving e-commerce operations. Obviously, Kohl's is a retailer, working with the company's marketing, finance, and merchandising teams. So can you imagine if you brought AI into those areas, they would be able to find out how to make Kohl's a better company to meet what their customers want? So, but he said he believes the CAIO position will evolve similar to that of the CTO role. I can remember 20, 30 years ago, CTO roles were just coming in and they weren't even sure how to use them. Well, I think we're seeing the same thing with the CAIO role. Today, few doubt that companies need a CTO, but in the early days when technology was first coming to the forefront, the CTO did not have a large role. And they didn't because they didn't understand what to use with them. An important aspect of the chief AI officer role lies in level setting bad ideas before they propel the industry down the wrong path. So many people don't understand what AI can do with all the data. So the CAIO needs to stop those ideas before they blossom into something that is bad for the company or will go nowhere. Indeed, the person in charge has to understand the AI well enough to stay ahead of any unintended consequences. You can't just let a computer make a decision without some kind of an intervention. So that's interesting to understand. So what does Square do? Square relies on collaborative governance. They don't have a CAI officer. Tech companies like Square already have a strong data science culture and have less need for centralized office of AI. We have not found the need for a chief AI officer, although we have some members of our board who are hardcore ML people and can help guide the overall strategy, but not in a day-to-day manner. So that's where AI is going in Square. And eBay, they have an AI steering committee, which I thought was kind of interesting. So each company is doing what makes sense for them. So it's funny that I just was talking about that because my next one came from the PDF mobile app development and deployment tips. And it says, should your company hire a chief AIO officer? And this again is about Aramark and what they did. So anyway, I think that was kind of interesting about that. And I think we should all look at that. Aramark did a chief AIO officer, but does that mean your company needs to do it? I would love to hear from project managers that may have an AI committee or have a CTO maybe that does the AI, or does your company ignore AI and how it might be done in your company? If you're a project manager and you deal with AI in your company, please contact me. I really would like to hear from you because AI is infiltrating all of our different companies, from retailers to very scientific companies like pharma. So please contact me. I'm at wanda@pmpowered.com. This podcast was brought to you by PM Powered, a consulting company for project, program, and portfolio needs. I'm Wanda Curley, your authority on project, program, and portfolio. Please go out to PM Current and follow me on Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. I'd love to hear from you. Again, you can contact me on wanda@pmpower.com. If you disagree with anything that I've said here, or even if you agree, I would love to hear from you. Please contact me again. You have a blessed week, and I'll see you next Monday.